Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening to you all. Hope you guys have had an awesome weekend out there as we wrap it up. About to head into another work week. I got you an update on what's going to happen this week. Could be a pretty active weather week. I'm expecting a couple days of severe weather, maybe two or three, at least two. So we're going to break down what we're looking at right now, the latest short range models. We're going to take a look at the NAM. There's a new NAM coming out right now. NAM is a short range convective model. But we're going to look at the one that's fully came out, which is the 12Z, which technically is the older run. But anyways, we're going to take a look at some model guidance, try to figure out what's going to be the evolution of these severe storms over the next couple of days for areas of the south central U.S., Mississippi Valley, the deep south. And then we're going to give you an update on the tropics. I know we haven't talked a lot on that lately, but there's been some hints on some global models that there could be a last gasp, if you will, for this hurricane season. The Europeans really not on board, but the GFS and even the Canadian is certainly showing some things really the first week in November, which, once you really get into November, things significantly drop off, but you can still get some crazy things that happen in November. But I'm going to talk about what I'm seeing, give my opinions on it. We're going to try to figure this thing out. If you guys have not subscribed, hit the subscribe button for me. Like the video if you like it. We're kind of in that transition period where we're completely leaving hurricane season. We're kind of entering that in-between season where a lot of times we'll have some cold fronts, so we'll have a severe weather event or two, and then the big shebang comes and we have winter, which you guys know that I love talking winter weather. So it definitely hit me up on Twitter, Facebook. It's great ways to follow along. And listen, I mean, our first winter storm threat is going to be around the corner before we know it. And, we're going to have a blast trying to figure it out and follow along. So definitely hit me up on any social media profile. It's a great way to follow along. When the weather gets active, I get about 10 times as active. So if you guys got anything that I can pray about, pray over, please put in the comments below so I can pray over it and so others can do so too. So let's definitely do that. Look out for one another here. God's got us. God's got our backs. That's for sure. So, water vapor loop. We got this surface low moving over the north central U.S., the Dakotas. This is putting down a good bit of snow from Montana, Wyoming. Their first significant snowstorm of the year. And I feel like it came kind of late this year, but better late than never. And then we got the remnants of this tropical system. I'll be honest, that starts with an R. I'm not going to try to pronounce the name. It might be easy, it might be hard, but I didn't even look into what it was called. But this will actually be a factor into the weather for the severe weather threat as basically an additional low pressure, if you will. So tropical system kind of surging through Mexico, since sped up, rapidly weakened. And then we got some energy bringing some light to moderate rain for areas of New England this evening, just creating kind of a rainy evening. But going forward here, what's going on with this? So tomorrow we have a slight risk, pretty large, good, I would say 35% of Texas under a slight risk. That's level 2 out of 5. And this is driven off of probably a damaging wind threat. There will be storms ongoing in Oklahoma, Texas, when you guys wake up in the morning. And then there will be additional rounds of storms that will fire up a little bit later. And then maybe another round a little bit later into the night, tomorrow night. But we have a tornado threat with this. It's a little too, well, not a little, it's pretty large, 2% chance of a tornado, 25 miles in a given location. This includes Waco, Austin, San Antonio, Houston, higher populated areas like that. So it's not a high chance for a tornado, but there is still a chance. Wind threat, though, pretty large, 15% risk of winds pushing 50 knots or higher. That's 55, 60 miles per hour. And there'll be a hail threat too, but really the dynamics really aren't there for a big-time hail threat. So the damaging wind threat's really there. And the kinematics are going to be pretty high. The thermodynamics, they're there, but really this is kinematic driven, meaning kinematics, basically think of that as wind energy. So basically the category severe weather damaging winds will be not maximized, but be higher than any other threat. So we'll watch for that, and then we'll move. It's a Tuesday. There's a slight risk. This is the day I watch out for. And really I think it's just because we add a little bit, just the storm mode that I'm seeing on the NAM, it looks like it's a little bit less bothered than maybe the storm mode tomorrow for Texas. So we'll watch this. Do I think it's going to uptrend to an enhanced? I really don't. But there's a chance that right now, we'll see what happens. There's a 15% chance of severe weather. That's what this means. But we'll see if there's a very small 5% risk of a tornado in this slight risk as it updates overnight tonight. We'll watch, but I really do think this will be damaging wind driven also. I think this will be the highest threat. But Memphis, Greenville, Jackson, Mississippi, down to and kind of the crease right here of Louisiana. We watch for severe weather Tuesday. And then what happens after that? I do think we'll have a marginal risk extended into Georgia, into the Carolinas. But I do think that the storm's I think it loses its forcing as basically the low pressure rides all the way up here. So that's why if you look at your weather apps right now and you live in the Carolinas, which we need the rain. I don't even remember the last time we got widespread rain. I really don't. I'm sitting here trying to think of it on the fly. And I really can't remember. I really can't. We need the rain. It just seems like that's been few and far between as far as the rounds of rains that we've been getting. But honestly, I don't think this system's going to give us widespread rains for the southeast. I don't. I think that the low pressure rides too far north. The lack of forcing precipitation basically dissipates as it gets into Georgia, I think. That's what I'm thinking right now. But we look at all this as a whole. We look at the GFS. Here comes this low pressure. It's going to riding into the Dakotas right now, creating a lot of snow for areas of Montana. And then eventually it'll bring some rain and snow for areas of the western Dakotas a little bit later tonight. Then tomorrow morning, like I said, widespread rain and storms for Oklahoma, Texas, all the way into areas of far eastern Kansas. And then we'll continue to move forward here. Low pressure really develops a surface low, rides through Arkansas for Tuesday morning. Ongoing, potentially strong to severe storms ongoing already in areas of Arkansas, Louisiana. We'll take a look at the short range models here in a second, so stick with me. And then this surface low continues to kind of blast into the Ohio Valley. And then if you watch here, you watch the rain. I do think there'll be some severe weather ongoing in Mississippi right here. But as this surface low kind of moves too far north, look how the green disappears in Georgia and the Carolinas. Lack of forcing. It's just the way it goes sometimes. And then we start to get back into another weekend and we'll watch another low pressure here. But it's just that time of the year. It's the changing of the seasons. November really and even December is really a heightened month, especially in the south for severe weather as the jet stream and these cold fronts become much more frequent. But I mean, the cold fronts have been pretty frequent for the last month and a half already. But let's take a look at the HRRR model. Latest long range literally just came out, goes out 48 hours. So this is starting off around 7 a.m. tomorrow around Texas, Oklahoma time. And we're already waking up, Oklahoma City to Dallas. We're already waking up to some showers, some storms. And then quickly, as we get into about mid-morning, line of storms will develop more kind of congealed and a lot of heavy rain into areas of southeast Kansas, the middle of Oklahoma. A little bit more cold air back here, but already you're seeing a line of storms already developing well west of Dallas-Fort Worth. These will continue to start to get into the afternoon hours, and I really think as you're getting into about 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, this is potentially what it could look like. A broken line of storms in Missouri, and then it becomes a little bit more intact as you get into Oklahoma. And then by the time you get into Texas, I mean, this is a pretty stout line of storms working its way right towards Dallas-Fort Worth area. This continues to move through, and then it starts to lose some steam as you lose basically the daytime heating and just the favorable thermodynamics that you get during the day. But it will still continue to be long-lived and continue overnight. We're getting into about midnight, and then, getting after midnight at this point, you still got a line of storms moving through eastern areas, southeast areas of Texas. And then it's still really broken up in nature all the way up into Missouri. Just more so rain up here in Illinois. But you watch Little Rock into the wee hours of the morning. Then this continues. And then we start to get into Tuesday morning. And this is when an additional surface low is riding out of Arkansas into Missouri. And then we'll wake up to some potential thunderstorms in Memphis Tuesday morning. And then we'll see what tries to develop again in Mississippi and Alabama as we get into Tuesday afternoon. This is as far out as the HRRR model goes. and it has a pretty robust looking line of storms that could be producing damaging winds, basically from central to northern areas of Alabama into kind of west central areas of Tennessee, knocking on the door of Nashville. But the kinematics right here, there'll be a pretty stout low-level jet. Winds will be screaming in the low levels about a mile up in the atmosphere, probably pushing, I don't know, 40, 50, 60 knots. Kinematics will be definitely high in this area, definitely driven by that. Kinematics, that wind energy. For a tornado threat, you really need a good, solid mixture of both kinematics and thermodynamics. And you're going to have dew points into this area, definitely into the 60s. But, I think you're going to be lacking as far as actual air temperatures that you need for any kind of tornado threat. Just not a setup for this. But there will be a tornado risk, I'm telling you. But, you look at the NAM. We stopped this 8 a.m. Tuesday morning. Well, it'll be 7 a.m. Central Time. Surface low, moving through. It's a little bit slower. And this is a pretty nasty line of storms moving through Shreveport, areas of Little Rock, starting to enter Baton Rouge, more so about midday, are blasting through Jackson, Mississippi. And then it hits areas like Mississippi earlier in the afternoon, as opposed to the HRRR model, which moves it through much quicker, has the storms moving through Tuesday morning instead of Tuesday afternoon. But this moves through, and then we'll watch to see, and this is as far as it goes. This is around 7, 8 p.m. in Alabama. We have to watch this storm mode into here. This shows a pretty vigorous line of storms, potentially producing damaging winds, maybe an isolated tornado threat, maybe a little bit of hail. But we watch this little tail of storms right here as it moves through Mississippi throughout the afternoon hours and evening hours into Alabama, throughout Tennessee. These could produce definitely a big risk for damaging winds. I think that'll be the highest risk with the surface low up here, low-level moisture being ripped up. And here you go. These are dew points, not temperatures, by the way. You can see it here. Still got a nice return flow. The dew point's still nice into the Carolinas, but you look at this surface low will start to ride up here. If you look at the NAM, this is yanking southerly winds, a southerly flow. So at the surface, you'll notice that, for example, you'll go to sleep a Monday afternoon or Monday evening or whatever for Memphis. Your dew points are still in the 50s. By the time you wake up Tuesday morning, dew points are in from the 50s to the 60s. You'll notice a much more moist atmosphere, and then line of storms associated with this cold front will blast through. Dew points will rise all the way into the 60s, maybe close to a 70 to reading, and then the cold front blasts through, and then the dew points drop well back into the 40s, 50s and 40s again with the passage of the cold front. But just looks like just your classic pull up of moisture ahead of this surface low. And this is normally what you see with severe weather threats. You look at the low-level jet. This might be overdone a little bit, but here you go. You got the surface low right here as we're getting into mid to late Tuesday morning. And then, a pretty intense low-level jet pushing 50, 60, maybe as much as 70 knots. This will create an environment that certainly supports damaging winds in the deep south Tuesday. So we just need to be careful. These are temperatures. So, if you go to the hottest part of the day on the NAM, temperatures only warming up into the 60s and 70s. So you don't have a ton of that low-level heat. There's not much heating at the surface. If the temperatures were getting into like the 80s, then man, you would need to watch out. I think the environment would really become unstable. I really do. And I think the CAPE levels will certainly rise. And when you get those CAPE levels, which are thermodynamics, and you mix that with the kinematics, then I think you could have a little bit more of a dangerous situation in the Deep South Tuesday. But we still just need to pay attention. We certainly do. I just think that, let's see if it'll actually show it for us. You look at the CAPE just off this. I know it's not the best way to look at it, but these CAPE levels are very... It's just not very high. You look at a sounding right in the middle of Mississippi here, and you got mid-level surface CAPE base, not even at 500. So even looking a little bit ahead of the line, you just don't have much. You need a little bit more. A lot of times when you have big time kinematics, you don't need outstanding amounts or massive amounts of CAPE. You really don't. But in this case, there's hardly nothing. So we'll see what happens with this to see if it trends higher. Hopefully it doesn't. But we watch to see if any more of that fuel for these storms begins to trend upward in models. So we'll continue to figure that out. You look at the tropics out here, I wouldn't even say we're really watching this, but this still has a 10% chance to develop. I know I haven't talked much on that, but I don't think this is going to do something. One thing I'm watching, we'll go through this really quick. The GFS continues to just flirt with the idea of somewhere around, first off, it shows this, the latest GFS from 12Z. Shows a quick developing system right here. Gets very close to Bermuda as we get into later this week, into the weekend. And tries to become a named storm. Whether it does, who knows. But, it's really the only model showing it. But then the GFS has been continuing to flirt with the idea around day 8 to day 10 of some kind of development in the Eastern Caribbean. You see it down here. And it does some weird stuff. We're starting to get way out in the long range, past 300 hours out. Turns this into a major hurricane. Goes between the Lesser Antilles and Puerto Rico, then heads on out. Cold front begins to kind of interact with us and steer this. But, it's just one run. The Canadian kind of shows the idea of something. First off, the Canadian shows the same system that the GFS does. Right here with this, you see this little quick developing system. Then you just watch out for some tropical energy into Bermuda, but we're just not sure on this yet. But if you look down here, the Canadian kind of gets a spin up going too in the Caribbean, but obviously does something different. We don't expect these models to be right in tune this far out. But it's worth saying or mentioning that the Canadian has something in the Caribbean too about 8 to 10 days out. The good old European is not really buying it. It does show a piece of energy right into here, just not as robust as this Canadian and GFS. But as far as that energy down here in the Caribbean, as we get into that same range, you see a low pressure pop up here. And you see a lot of green down here. But you don't really see anything getting consolidated at all. So that's all I got, guys. It's going to be an active week. Watch Tuesday. Maybe not tomorrow so much. But watch Tuesday. That's a day you need to watch. If you get a little bit more CAPE, if you don't know what that is, it's basically the available energy in the atmosphere for basically these storms to take advantage of. It's the juice in the atmosphere, the fuel to the atmosphere. So we watch that. If you get a little bit more, then it could be a scenario we certainly need to pay much more attention to in Mississippi and Alabama, Tennessee. So for now, nothing to be overly concerned about, but we'll continue to figure this out. You guys have a great ending to your weekend. I'll be with you guys in the morning. God bless all y'all, and have a great night.